champions.
Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes!
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Well, welcome in. Episode 127, Drunk on Broad, but today we are drunk on the Fightins. So I got my guy Eric here. Eric, how we doing, brother?
We're doing good, Don. Doing good. Always feeling good coming off of a series win, and especially against the Padres. So feeling real good right now.
Listen, anytime you can take 3 out of 4 from a team that you're kind of battling for contention with, I'll take that. And I think the thing, and we just jump right in, the thing that I took away from this particular series was how resilient they were. Because I felt like I was having a conversation with my dad over the weekend. It's like, are they ever going to like jump out and be ahead? Like it just feels like this team is like eternally playing from behind.
Yeah, and a few weeks ago, I was saying to someone that I really felt like once they were down like 2 or 3 runs, just like pack it in. The offense had kind of no motor, no drive. It looked like, and it kind of felt like once you were down, nothing was coming back. The resiliency they showed actually just showed that they were like playing with some heart, like and some fight. So that was really good to see. Getting contributions from a lot of different guys, not everyone, but a lot of different guys contributing. So I think that was a nice series. I know the Padres have been struggling this year so far, but they do have a really potent lineup. Like they have the potential to kind of turn it on, I think, at any minute. And the fact that the Phillies were able to handle a team like that, it shows a lot.
Just seems like that team can just explode at any moment. Like especially like looking at like the way that I think they gave up 7 home runs in that series. 6,
it was
7?
A lot. Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but it was a lot. I mean, yesterday alone was 3, right?
Yeah.
It was 2 yesterday. Yeah, I mean, it was, yeah. So I mean, they definitely surrendered a lot of long balls. But the pitching, while it did not break necessarily. So
right.
That was kind of good to see. I know Soto struggled with command a little bit in yesterday's game, but overall, the bullpen's been pretty good, even despite some pretty key injuries, to Sir Anthony and Alvarado. So that was kind of good to see. Overall, I thought it was just a pretty well played series. It was a fun series too. It was definitely one of the more fun series we've seen so far this season.
It was fun to see them go back and forth, especially like, you look at like how the series started, right? And, you're coming out of the All-Star break, having lost the last 2 in Miami, you lose the first one coming out and it kind of like starts with this dud. But it's almost like the doubleheader was the best thing that could have happened to them because it really got their momentum, right, swinging back in the right direction. They're able to capitalize in game 2. And then, yesterday, the marathon that was yesterday was just wild.
That really was. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about all the people who were actually down at the stadium and got down there for
really surprised about that.
Yeah.
Not to just like surprised at the amount of people. I'm looking at this going, I'm trying to tell my wife, I'm like, do you realize that this game was supposed to start at 1:30?
Yeah, it was 3 hours.
Doesn't start until, what was it, 4:30?
It was a little after 4:30, yeah, right around 4:30.
Like 4:30, 4:40, and to see the amount of people that were there at the end of the game in the 12th at like what ended up being 10 of 8, I'm like, that's more than most people's full-time job.
Yeah, I think that does speak though to to where the team's at. A few years ago, I don't know if people would have went to the game. First of all, second of all, they definitely would have waited for a 3-hour rain delay and then not sat there for a 12-inning game. So I think it really does speak to the state of the team right now. Fans are happy with the way the organization is being run. It could be, I believe it. We talk about it. This team could be so frustrating at times, but there's always, I feel like now, kind of that hope that like, hey, maybe this is when they go on their run. Maybe that, that doubleheader that they took both of on Saturday could have been that momentum shift, and maybe this is now where they kind of go on that run.
Yeah, and like the thing that I think makes me feel like I'm like kind of on the right track is like the national conversation is trending more towards like, well, I know the Phillies are kind of on the fringe of the wild card, but like I heard an interview with Buster Olney, and he's like, that's a team to watch because their team ERA over the last 6-8 weeks is tops in baseball. Their bullpen has been really reliable. And then you look at the offensive production that they're starting to get, right? You saw Bryce get off the home run schneid, over the weekend. You see guys like Turner, guys like Stott, like those guys are coming up in really big spots, getting really big hits. It just seems like this team is all getting hit on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, I think this lineup is really built for power, right. Which I think one of the big issues that we were seeing from the offense was no one was hitting home runs, and this lineup has too many guys that strike out a lot to really be one of those sustained rally type teams. Really, you don't see much of that in baseball anymore anyway. But when you're having guys who are supposed to be hitting for power, I'm not even just talking Bryce here, I'm talking for a lot of different guys, and you're not getting it. It's like, how are you going to score runs? Yesterday there were, and this series is really the first time in a while where it's like, hey, we're stringing some hits together here. There were home runs sprinkled in, but there were a few times where we're actually seeing sustained rallies. I'm like, what is this team doing right now? But, that was really good to see. Now, who knows? The offense, I still have to see a little bit more from, because some of the lineups we're seeing right now, I know there's injuries. I know, Stott was a little, or not Stott, Bohm, and Sosa were a little banged up a couple days ago, so they didn't start yesterday. But that game one lineup was yikes. Like, I mean, that's not a playoff team lineup there, especially the bottom half. I get you're getting guys playing 2 games, so I totally understand that, but it's like, ooh, yeah, bench depth is maybe becoming a bit of an issue. But so you're starting to see when they do try to spread that lineup out and give guys breaks, especially on a doubleheader where you're giving guys all a bunch of breaks all at the same time. It turned that lineup from really productive to like really thin really quickly. Yeah, once we started getting into a deficit in game one, I'm like, wow, this is gonna be a tough one to climb back out of, because it was Rojas's first game, so didn't really know what to expect from him. Drew Ellis yesterday, standing there looking at every pitch, didn't take the bat off his shoulder, hoping for a walk, I think. So I don't know. Derek Hall, I know he's not really a bench guy right now, he's starting, but I'm very concerned there. So I don't know. That might be, I know we'll probably get into this later, but potentially something they need to look at the deadline, or make some moves on the 40-man, because I know everyone's been talking about it, Scott Kingery, who's actually playing pretty well down there. A couple other guys, Jake Cave, obviously. Who knows if you so you really do maybe have some internal options that you can at least try out. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. You do have, in terms of the guys that you can bring up and put down, you do have some flexibility. But I do understand the concerns. I feel like this is something that potentially could be addressed with a Dombrowski move later, closer to the trade deadline, which may put a guy that they trade for in the starting spot, which may slot some other guys in to the ability to be able to get, the starting role, spread that starting role out so that you're looking at more productivity. And I think, the guys that you're talking about, right? Those young guys, like at this point, right? You can give, Kingery a chance. You can give, Jake Cave a chance. Because the drop off from those guys to what you have isn't really much. Right. Yeah, no, I do agree with that. And it's really tough to say, right? Because, guys are thriving in AAA, but who knows? Because as much as Jake Cave's killing it in AAA right now, over the course of his major league career, he's I think a sub 200 hitter. So is he just really good in the minors? Is it more of an issue with hitting major league pitching? I don't know, but like we said, there's not really a big enough drop off. I feel like I do like I want to see what Rojas can do. I was really excited they called him up. I was not expecting it at all,
Right.
but I thought that was kind of fun to see him come up, and his play in center field is really impressive.
That was one of my biggest takeaways from this whole series, though. Watching him being able to make up ground, like talk about the first game of the doubleheader on Saturday, the play that he makes early on in the game where he had to run from that standing spot, 100 feet to get to that spot to be able to make that play. You saw plays yesterday where he's covering ground between him and Schwarber. Really, with the speed between him and Marsh, if you can put Marsh on one of those corners, you're covering a lot of ground, and you can really kind of make up for the ground that Schwarber can't make up in that gap. And I think that's going to be the biggest takeaway once you're able to slot Harper into that first, when he starts playing first base on a consistent basis, you can get Schwarber out of the field, and the outfield of Castellanos, and Rojas and Marsh. I feel a lot more comfortable with that, with Bryce at first base and Schwarber in the DH spot. It just seems to me like that could also be a move. That there's a lot of flexibility in what could happen, but I feel like they're all kind of hitting the right cylinder right now.
Yeah, and I mean that's huge if you can get, and even when Pacheco's back, like he can cover a lot of ground out there too. So having any combination of Castellanos, Marsh, Pache, and Rojas, if he stays up, really does improve the defensive part of the outfield so much. It was actually funny you mentioned about covering ground with Schwarber. There were a few plays where it actually looked like Rojas was playing both center and left field over this weekend, and the balls he was getting to. There was one, I think it was yesterday. I think it was McCarthy or Kruk. One of those guys said, Rojas is running over there, and then looks down at Schwarber and basically says, "Oh wow, I actually have to get this one." It was probably a left fielder ball in, with probably 85% of left fielders in the league. But luckily Rojas has some legs and could get there. But it was kind of amusing.
And listen, and Rojas has a huge play, a huge at bat late in the game yesterday, where he's able to put down the bunt to get the guy to third. That's a huge spot for a really, really young kid in what amounts to be his second start. Third start, like for you to get that level of play that early. And listen, I get that, like there are ups and downs, and you got to ride that wave of productivity and not. But I'm looking at this and going, I like what I see, and even if this is the other thing I thought about is, could this be an audition for other teams to see what you have?
Yeah, and I thought about that. I had seen some people put that out there, and it could be, especially because like defensively, I think he's been ready to be a major league defensive center fielder now for probably close to a year. The thing with him has always been, can he hit major league pitching? So I think if it is an audition, it's a risky audition, because he could come up and show that he can't hit major league pitching at all. But so far, I mean, it's a really small sample size. He doesn't look like overwhelmed yet, I guess. Now the Padres, especially like their bullpen didn't look great, but he hasn't really looked overwhelmed at the plate in the plate appearances that I've seen him hitting it. So you never really know, but it definitely could be. He could be a piece.
Yeah, but God, to me, this move screams Braves, right? This is a move that the Braves would make, where all right, you're down an outfielder. All right, bring up the next great, outfielder that you have in your farm system, regardless of, age, level. So I was like, all right, I like that direction in terms of like, we're not going to sit and wait until this guy is 27 and, we then miss the boat on value in a trade or value as a player, because it could have been, you go back as far as like, even just go back to Ryan Howard, right? He missed a whole pile of years that he could have been up here and been productive because Jim Thome was here.
Right. And you're not going to supplant Jim Thome with a rookie at that point, right? So
correct. But I look at I like the idea of like, oh, all right, we have this opportunity to get this guy up here. Let's get him up here and play because we could. It's a position where we can utilize him. And even if you're what you're seeing, right? You put him in center, right? Marsh slides over to the one of the corners. When Schwarber's out, Cassiano, like there's a lot of ways that you can make this lineup productive, and putting him and Marsh at the back end of the lineup makes that lineup uberly productive on the back end to then reset it to get guys on base when Schwarber comes up. Because, the argument about Schwarber in the leadoff spot is it really only affects that first inning. After that, if you've got the guys that reset the lineup at the back end, then they're like Marsh and Rojas should be on base when Schwarber, and Turner and Harper and Castellanos and Real Muto, when all those guys are coming up, there should be those guys should be on base.
Yeah, you make a great point with that actually, because the risk here is if Schwarber leads off a game, right, and strikes out, no one on base, not a bad situation. Okay, now you got Turner, Harper, Castellanos, Real Muto, all kind of hitting behind him. But the point now is with the DH, you don't have to worry about that pitcher spot kind of resetting the lineup where your leadoff hitter has to be that guy. So you're right, because now if you have Rojas or Marsh or any combination of those 8-9 guys getting on base, Schwarber's now technically your three hitter, your cleanup hitter in that case. So that's a really good point there, and really interesting. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily always understand, because the game has changed so much that the way you have a leadoff hitter today is very different than what you'd be expecting. Even go back, 10 years ago, where you're looking for a guy who hits 300, can run the base as well, because Schwarber's not going to hit 300. He might not hit 200 this year. We'll see what happens. He's not going to steal a base unless something crazy happens. But he has that chance to lead off the game with a spark and then drive in those runs in the middle or later innings, kind of now as a power guy later on. So that, I'm glad you made that point, because that was something I wanted to bring up at some point too, because I think that's really important for people to understand.
Yeah, it's wild. But he's a guy to me that you have to watch the game to see the effect that he has. You can't just look at the box score. You can't, go look at his statistics and see that he's batting 189, that he struck out 123 times. You have to watch the game to see in those moments, like last night when he comes up in the 12th and you got a guy on third and he realizes that all he's got to do is get the ball to the outfield. And I mean, talk about a guy that had a hell of a weekend.
Yeah, he really did. And I think, so he's been kind of like the Rhys Hoskins of this year, I guess, since Hoskins is out and now Schwarber's the real streaky guy. I feel like a lot of fans have kind of been turning on Schwarber, but the amount of value he adds in other ways too, he has, he's not really like a vocal leader. We don't see it in interviews with him, but apparently, from everything we're reading from, different reports and everything, Schwarber's like the guy in the clubhouse, right? He's kind of the guy who everyone kind of looks up to. And, I think there's something to be said about that too. Seeing a guy who's the leader, make things go. I saw a tweet from, I think it was Jack Fritz, earlier today, that Schwarber since June 2nd, the Phillies are 15 games over 500. Schwarber's got an 833 OPS and 12 home runs in that time. He's making the team go. Even if he has an 0-for-4 game, he's obviously not the only reason they're going to win a game, but the team kind of follows his lead, I guess. Almost similar, very different style of player. And different leadership style, but kind of like Jimmy Rollins, right? Rollins was a leadoff hitter. He could be streaky at times, but when Rollins was on, the team followed Rollins, right? I mean, if Rollins was playing, the rest of those guys rallied behind him. Schwarber, if he's getting on base, if he's making things happen, those guys are kind of getting behind him. It may not come out in the news, but there's a reason, when he's doing well, the team kind of follows that, because we've seen other guys get hot, right? Castellanos has been hot all year, but the team has still gone through some bad streaks. So I just think there's something about Schwarber that makes this team go.
Yeah, this weekend. So a game-tying home run, a go-ahead and game-winning single, go-ahead 3-run home run, and a walk-off sac fly in a span of 36 hours.
Yeah.
Like, he had himself a weekend. But, like, you're right. He really does replace, the conversation of who is the leader in the clubhouse, right? And he's got the MLB credentials to be able to kind of hold himself to that, and Chris, to answer your question, the chances that Hoskins comes back are very slim. If he does come back, it's going to be in, late September, if at all. And listen, if they get him back, you kind of figure that one out, and that would just be a bonus to kind of add to your playoff roster at that point. But just a really, really impressive way to kind of rebound off that. They had run off into that All-Star game. They'd run 13 straight road wins, but then they lose the last 2 to Miami. They lose this one. Just to see how they rebounded, man, just really, really impressive.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't know. I mean, it's been going on since the Marlins, have come into existence, but they have been a thorn in the Phillies' side, whether they're a good team or a bad team for, basically, yes, since going back to, the early 2000s, the Jeff Conine year and all that stuff. But it's just like, it's kind of crazy to me how that always happens. But going into it, just because we were on such a roll and knowing it was the Marlins, I wasn't actually too concerned about losing those two coming off that, especially sweeping the Rays. And I think then this series against the Padres coming back into it and kind of the way they rebounded after, like we said in the beginning of the show, that first loss, the way they rebounded and came back and won 3 straight, really kind of took a lot of my concerns from that pre-All-Star break kind of little funk away a little bit there.
And what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts going into Milwaukee?
So it's an important series, right? We're home. They're another NL team kind of within that wild card race there. Milwaukee's got some pitching, with Corbin Burns and stuff like that, but I'm not too afraid of their lineup really. I think if our pitchers do what they can do, we're in good shape there. But I mean, just like any series, I think that the goal is to win a series. Take 2 or 3 here, because then who's up after that? It's the
they got Milwaukee,
they go to Cleveland, right?
And Baltimore.
Okay, so, I mean, so those are Cleveland is another one that whole AL Central is kind of a mess. So I think we could probably we should do okay out there if we're handling teams like the Padres and Rays and stuff like that.
So then they'll come home. They'll play Baltimore at home.
That should be a fun series.
And that'll be fun. And then they go out to Pittsburgh.
Yes. So hopefully that'll be a sweep, or at least.
So it'll be a good test. It'll be, Milwaukee is leading the Central right now, but they're all, I feel like this is exactly what Major League Baseball kind of wanted, where there's that wild card really does create, a huge pile of teams in the middle that are all still battling for contention.
Yeah. I think I saw something this morning, like 7 NL teams are kind of in that mix over like 50 wins or above. Obviously, the Braves are unless something crazy happens, they're going to finish the season with probably close to, if not more than 100 wins. But
they're 61 and 31 right now.
Right. So that's what I mean. Going forward, it would be hard for them not to win, 95 plus. So I don't know. I mean, I really think that NL is kind of fun in that way right now, where there's teams who aren't always usually in it either. Like the Reds have been really fun to watch with Elly De La Cruz coming up.
I got like a man crush on him, man. He is like electric to watch. He is so cool.
He really is. You're basically a 5-tool player. But yeah, the stuff
he's
he does,
huge. He's huge
massive
dude to play shortstop.
And I think I saw yesterday he had a play from shortstop that he threw to first base like 97 miles an hour.
I saw that, man. It's just, yeah. And did you see and I know this is probably old news right now, but the play, I can't remember who they're playing, but they had questioned his bat and whether the
Yes.
bat was legal or not,
Mhm.
right? Something about the knob of the bat. And then the next at bat, he comes up and he just crushes one.
Launches it. Yep.
And he turns to the dugout and tells him to like check the bat. And I'm going,
Yeah.
but that is the kind of stuff that baseball needs. Like, he is a player that baseball needs. And it's really a shame that there wasn't an opportunity to kind of showcase him at the All-Star game, because he came in too late in the voting process. But I don't think he's not eligible for the futures game. So it's like he was in that
Right.
weird spot. But like, he was just electric, man.
Yeah, he's like one of the biggest story makers in the game right now, and he's only been up for what, a month and a half. But yeah, so yeah, he couldn't. And I was actually watching the All-Star game, thinking, I'm like, wow, like he's a guy that you're missing. But again, there was no way to really get him in there because he came up so late. But yeah, I mean, he's electric. He's a lot of fun to watch.
Between him and Ohtani, man, it's just
two totally different style players. But yeah, they're baseball's in a really good spot right now.
And Ohtani's gonna make himself like $1 billion,
something like that. Yeah,
it's just wild. It's wild.
Yeah.
Now, and remind me to touch. I want to touch, but when we talk about the trade stuff, I want to talk about him real quick and whether we want to move on from him or not. But like, so going into the All-Star game. So what are your thoughts on the All-Star weekend? I have a couple of gripes, but I enjoyed the All-Star weekend.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I watched the Futures game, at least the beginning of it anyway, because I wanted to see Abel and Crawford. So I think I watched like the first like 3 or 4 innings or whatever. That's always really fun, seeing some of those guys, because in a few years, like some of these guys are going to be up, be major league players making impacts. So I think that's kind of fun to watch. The home run derby's fun. My gripe, I miss the old 10 out system rather than this timed one, because I feel like now they're trying to just get off as many pitches and swings as they can. So you're missing half the home runs that are being hit, or you don't know where something went or what counted, because now they're changing the camera all over the place. So that was kind of it was a fun derby to watch. But I kind of almost wish they'd go back to that. And then
I agree with you, because like you've got the kids and young adults that are kind of running around the field. The guy just getting launched with one of Vlad's. But like, I always look at like the Futures game. My gripe with the Futures game, it was only available on the
I think it was Peacock. I think it was Peacock. Yeah,
Peacock or Paramount. Like that, like, you're MLB. You are trying to showcase the next great talented players that are going to be coming up, and you put it on a network where you have to exclusively have the subscription to be able to watch. Like, that should have been like an ESPN, it would put it on, make that the Sunday night broadcast, give it all of the hoopla that it should. And then you don't get the opportunity to see those guys unless you're dialed into that specific network. And that was frustrating. I like the 10 out thing, because you're right. There are so many pitches that are getting thrown that you're missing, half of them.
Mm-hmm.
My other gripe was with the uniforms.
That was going to be my All-Star game gripe. Yep. Yeah, that was number one. They weren't like good uniforms.
They were all, like, you had how many years to design these uniforms? And listen, my wife is like as far removed as possibly can be, other than to know that like I really like baseball, so she kind of likes it by proxy, and by likes it, tolerates it. But she even walks in and goes, "Why are they wearing black pants and blue shirts?" She's like, "What team is he on? What team is he on?" And I'm like, "Oh, do you see that little tiny patch that's at the top of their pants? That's where the team." And she goes, "Well, that's stupid." I'm going, again, you had the opportunity to grow and showcase all these young talented players, some of which, like, unless you're dialed into every Major League Baseball team, you might not know where some of these guys play. Right. So like you have the opportunity, like if a guy comes out in, the Orioles uniform, comes out in a Yankees uniform, those are identifiable characteristics. I can now go and be like, oh, I'm going to look this up. I might check them out. But the uniforms kind of killed all of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think to a casual fan who doesn't watch, other teams as much, or, maybe watches, 20, 30 games a year, but wants to tune into the All-Star game, they're not going to know who half those guys are. And I think you're doing a major disservice to the player by not marketing them, and all that. So it's, I liked all the stuff. I thought the game was really good. I like seeing some Phillies make some contributions there, but yeah, I thought the game was good. It was nice seeing the NL finally get a win there. So overall, I thought it was a good weekend. Just a couple things I need to tweak.
Like, I love the idea of like the home, like in this case, the American League, all the American League guys all play in their home team uniform. The NL would all play in the grays and the road. Like, it's not that simple. Like, and then like I heard someone bring this up, like, let those guys play with that all-star patch on their uniform the rest of the year. Right. And that's I would rather, like, if I'm going to go buy a jersey, I don't want to buy a Castellanos uniform that looks like a Seattle Mariners uniform.
Right.
I would rather buy his uniform with the all-star patch on it. Just a thought. Like,
well, yeah, because in 5 years, you're not going to remember, oh, that game was in Seattle. That's why it looks like this. I'd be like, why in God's name did I buy this?
And now that I think about it, I remember we were down at the game. So the game that we were down there with the Mets, I saw somebody wearing a Bryce Harper jersey, but it was orange. It was a purple one. It was orange and I'm going, what the fuck is that? Here, it was from the All-Star game when it was in New York, and the Mets hosted, and I'm going, like, I don't want that. That's
no, like, I wouldn't want Mets colors.
Nah, fuck the Mets.
Yeah.
But Chris, to answer your question, and Chris, the work that they're doing, over, at the Drunk Phils fans, they're doing a great job. They're, they'll have, I think it's episode 4 maybe tonight. They're doing their shows on Monday night. So if you're checking those guys out, check them out. They're doing them live from the garage, which is a cool spot. And Chris, to answer your question, so about Rojas and being an everyday center fielder, I think it could be one of the two. I think he could be an everyday center fielder. I think he could be a showcase for a trade. But I think either way, you're seeing his value to be able to get, from sideline to sideline, from center field, to be able to get to the gaps in both right and left center, making up the space that Schwarber might, consistently miss those balls, is only an asset. I think he can be.
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell necessarily, but at the same time, like, the defense, as we said, is definitely there. It's just, I think you got to see a couple weeks of how he faces major league hitting, because his season this year at Reading, he actually, like, he started hitting the ball really well. Speed, stolen bases, he could be a major menace on the base pass, I think. It's just a matter, can he get on base? So I think that's what the Phillies are going to I think that, that could be one of the reasons, kind of see, okay, what do we have in this guy? Whether they want to use him for a trade, or, hey, can this guy be a guy that we end up, keeping in our outfield once Bryce goes to first base for a few games here and there. So yeah, I think that it's definitely going to be interesting over the next couple, next week or two, to see how he keeps performing, especially at the plate.
Yeah, most definitely. And Chris is sharing his all-star gripe should be that it should be the best players, not the most popular players, or the teams that have the most home games and get the voting. Chris, I completely agree with you. The way that there has to be a balance between how those players are selected, whether it's something similar to like now that I'm looking at Chris's comment, like I'm thinking about how NFL will do the top 100, and part of that voting is player voting. I think that some of it should be player voting, some of it should be coaches voting, and then maybe fan votes. Is in some portion, right? You give the fans a voice, but it shouldn't be as big of it shouldn't be the entire percentage of getting those guys there.
I agree with that. I think because then it's a popularity contest, right? Like, remember what they did? I don't know when they stopped it, but I remember a while ago, Victorino is like kind of one of those like last guy in type things that fans can vote for. Yeah. I think that would be a really cool thing to do, where like then fans get to vote in like the last couple like reserve guys, right? Like, okay, this guy's on my team, or this guy's been really hot lately. Like I can vote for them. But I think you're right. It needs to be a more balanced way to get your starters in there, kind of like what they do with the pitchers, right? I mean, fans don't vote for the pitchers. The pitchers kind of get in on their own merits based off of like coaches and players and things like that. I think maybe you could count fan vote toward that a little bit, and then give fans like full autonomy on maybe a couple of the last roster spots or something.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Like, you give them like, I don't know, the last 5 roster spots, whatever that is. And then what his second part about every team, he's saying, not every team making that mandatory part of every team being represented, and kind of doing away with that. Yeah,
that's a tough one, because I understand like from a players union standpoint and from an ownership standpoint, everyone's going to want their team logo somewhere involved, even though they weren't really always there this time. But they're going to want they're going to want a representative so that they get that. Their fans have a reason to watch the games and everything. But I mean, it is Major League Baseball, right? It doesn't have to be everyone gets a prize, right? So I kind of see both sides of that one, where you should get in based on merit and your performance. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, it's also a business, and marketability and stuff like that is another thing they have to think about. So that's a tough one, and I haven't really given it much thought on what to do about that, or how to fix that issue. But I can see both sides of that one.
Like one of the things I thought about while I'm reading this is like, if you expanded that all-star roster, right? You get one guy from every team, but that expanded roster maybe gives the opportunity that, some guys that are getting in that are the sole representative of your team. Like, I remember wasn't the one year Pat Neshek was the Phillies representative from like he probably had no business being in the All-Star game.
Right.
But maybe having the guys that kind of earn that merit of earning it from their play on the field maybe pushes those guys that are like the participation trophy guy. Yeah. Maybe it pushes him a little further away from and it gives you representation at the field and at the game, but it doesn't necessarily mean those guys have to play.
Yeah, that's something to think about. Yeah, it's one of those ones where I don't know if they're going to how or when they would change any of this, but it's always something fun to think about and discuss.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we're going to take a commercial break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk potential trade deadline stuff with the Phillies, and then we're going to talk Immaculate Grid. So if you have not done it and you want to hit pause at that point, we totally get it, but we'll be right back.
Von C. Brewing Company is a 20-barrel, 16,000 square foot microbrewery with a 2,500 square foot tasting room, including a spacious outside beer garden in Norristown, PA, in the heart of Montgomery County. The Von C. family is part of the family that started C. Schmidt and Son Brewing in 1860. Stop in Wednesday through Sunday and taste a variety of draft and 16-ounce cans of originally brewed beer and tell them the Drunk on Broad crew sent you. Von C. Brewing is located at 1210 Stenbridge Street, Suite 300 in Norristown. Cheers.
Team Clicks are the only glasses for real sports fans. With interchangeable arms, you can support all of your favorite teams, or even make and create custom options as well. These die-hard sports fans have realized that sports fans needed something other than face paint to show their love and passion for their teams. Go to teamclicks.com/DOB and show your love for your hometown team.
La Tourain's curated collection of men's and women's watches is a perfect investment that lasts for years to come and fits perfectly with your every outfit and style. Our range of classic watches aren't just a great perfect formal and casual accessory, but a time machine that takes you back to memories. Explore our collection of timeless watches that can reflect your taste, personality, and personal style. Our exclusive collection of carefully curated, affordable luxury watches is what you need to make a personalized style statement. You can take pride in your prized possession, handing it over to the next generations as your most loved asset that they can also own and display with the same pride. These high-quality pieces stand the test of time, giving exceptional value and return on your investment. Go to live-touraim.com and use code DOB at checkout and get 10% off.
If you're looking for unique sports apparel, check out Streaker Sports. They've dug deep into the archives and have brought back some incredible defunct team logos and have even created entire defunct league collections. They also have collections paying homage to sports culture, including the Miracle on Ice, Slap Shot, Caddyshack, the Mighty Ducks, and even have a license with Wiffle Ball and USA Hockey. Only for Drunk on Broad listeners, use code BROAD at checkout to get 10% off anything at streakersports.com. Again, that's 10% off anything at streakersports.com with discount code BROAD.
All right, we're back. We're back and we're talking trades. Eric, what do you got for me? What are your main targets? Let's start with this. What are the positions that if you're Dave Dombrowski, where are you targeting to best improve this roster, before the trade deadline?
So really up through this series, I really felt like we still need a right-handed power bat. Castellanos is coming around a little bit, but even just having a guy who can, play left field or first base or something, right? Mm-hmm. Who can actually supply some power from the right-hand side, I think is something really important. Maybe not even an everyday player, right? Maybe even a platoon guy with some of these guys, but you just need some pop from that right-hand side that you lost with Hoskins. Starting pitching is an interesting one because I feel like, the numbers have looked really good, right? Really, aside from Nola, most guys have been pretty much doing what they're supposed to be doing. And Nola's had good games too. Like I don't always necessarily love all the Nola hate, but I get the frustration levels there.
Gotcha.
And Sanchez has been pitching well. I don't necessarily think you need to go out and look to get a top of the line starting pitcher.
Okay.
Unless, there's one guy maybe who can play both sides of the field, but I'm sure we'll talk about him. I don't think you necessarily need a top of the line starting pitcher, but maybe another depth piece. I mean, if there's an injury, we're back to that same situation we're in, before Sanchez kind of stepped in to be that stopgap guy. So a depth piece that you don't have to give a lot up for, maybe a couple lower level prospects. I wouldn't mind something there.
Okay.
And I really do think our bench, could be a bit problematic. Josh Harrison went out and that kind of, prompted some moves, but Harrison wasn't doing much. Sosa is kind of being exposed for not being an everyday player, right? I mean, he's had some big hits. I know he had, and he scored the winning run yesterday, but that's just because he started on second base already. So I think, we're starting maybe some bench depth too. I haven't really looked into that part a lot, about like who I would want. I know the big names that everyone wants to talk about though are, the Soto rumors last week and the Ohtani rumors coming out and, them saying that Ohtani could be a fit for the Phillies. There's never going to be a time where you can tell me we can get a guy like Ohtani, and I wouldn't say give up whatever you have to give up. I think, he moves the needle so much, and he helps on both sides. Right? He basically takes up two of the, three needs that I said, and he shouldn't be on your bench anyway. So, it's an interesting one.
This is what it would have felt like in the early 1900s watching Babe Ruth.
Right. Someone trying to trade for him.
But better.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually better. Yeah.
It's if you have to trade your top 5, 6, 7 guys in your farm system, it would still be worth it. Yep.
And
he's that much of a guy that moves the needle.
He really does. I mean, he's a generational player, probably the best that, most of us will see in our lifetime. I saw John Morosi came out with something saying on MLB Network saying that, it would take multiple, top 100 prospects just to even get the conversation started here. I mean, to me, that seems pretty obvious, right? Like I wouldn't expect it to be any different than that. It's just a matter of how many they want, I guess, is what you got to look at. I'm kind of, as much as I love prospects, I love, thinking about their potential and, hoping, they're going to live up to everything that they can be. You think back to some of these guys that we said were untouchable, right? Don Brown, Kyle Drabeck, even that whole trade thing that Amaro made. The only guy that we gave up was Carlos Carrasco, who's even still in the league, and he's like maybe league average at best, right? So I'm kind of over
like a guy like Travis d'Arnaud was like a guy that they gave up in the Roy Halladay.
Yes, and he's still playing.
He ended up being the best
of those guys, right?
Of those guys, but like anytime you look at a trade, whatever team is getting the best player, that team wins the trade, hands down. Because all those other guys are all that other stuff is all so unproven that look at Sixto Sanchez, right? He was untouchable for forever, right? And
Spencer Howard, same thing, yeah.
Spencer Howard with the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Oh my God. But so Ohtani is and the part that I wanted to bring up to you is if you're Artie Moreno, do you move him? Because regardless of what you get, to me, I'm looking at that going, I can't let this guy go for nothing.
Right.
Because at the end of the year, there's a potential that he walks and goes to, you name it, right? A New York team, Seattle, San Francisco, the Dodgers, something on the West Coast. He's going to make, God, who knows, $800 million.
He's going to make a lot of money. He's going to make a lot of money.
He's going to make a lot of money. So, you're essentially saying, if you are trading for him and you are aware that it's a rental, but you're also aware that you are bludgeoning your farm system, you have to be on that guy is just going to, launch missiles and strike. The one game a couple weeks ago where he strikes out 10 and has 2 home runs in the same game. It's just
it's insane. I'm going back to whether or not they should trade him or not. So the whole thing was, if they're in playoff contention, they're going to hang on to him. If not, they're not. As of right now, they're 9 games out of the AL West, and they are 6 games out of the wild card right now. So, if they don't pick it up before the All-Star break, if you don't really have a shot at making the playoffs, I think you'd be dumb not to unload him. It would be an unpopular move, but realistically, the Angels aren't going to re-sign him. They never pony up that much money. So you might as well get something for him. Even if you land, 3 top 100 prospects and a couple, lower level guys, even maybe a major league ready guy, you're giving up a lot for him. But it's also important that, we realize he's going to be a rental to anyone he goes to, right?
Right.
He's going to hit the market, and it's because it's going to be the biggest free agent signing in history. So I would say trade him, get something for him, because you're probably not going to get him back. And especially just to miss the playoffs again with him and Mike Trout on the same team. If I'm an Angels fan, I'm livid about how this whole situation's been run, wasting all this time of Trout and Ohtani on the same roster.
Eric, they are the Edmonton Oilers of Major League Baseball. Right, to have McDavid and Draisaitl and the elite level of talent, but then the drop off. Look at a guy like Rendon, who just went there with all the promise of being the third guy and just has done nothing. I don't even know. I'd have to go back and look, but I don't even know if he's done 10 home runs.
He's been hurt. He's been hurt most of the year because I keep seeing him on my waiver claim things for fantasy baseball, and he's always out there and he's always on the IL. So and he's been hurt. Yeah. He's been an injury issue. He was so good when he was with Washington, but injuries have always been kind of there to get him, and I think he's been injured most of the last 3 seasons.
It's wild. But let me throw some names at you. So 2 guys that I'm looking at are both coming from the NL Central and the Cubs. I'm looking at Cody Bellinger, and I'm looking at Marcus Stroman.
Mhm.
Would those be guys that you'd be interested in, and to what level?
I would be. I think Cody Bellinger would be out. Obviously, I would love Stroman on my team. But again, I don't know what we'd have to give up to get him. Bellinger, I think, he's going to be, because he's having a really good season right now. I think he's going to be tougher to get to, and I think there's going to be a lot of other teams in on him because he can play. He can play a lot of different positions, and he's that right-handed bat that we could use. So I would really like to get him. I think he would be. He's actually one of my top guys that I kind of have on my trade deadline wish list. I think it's gonna be tough to get him. I think there's gonna be a lot of other teams going after him. Why do I forget Stroman's contract situation? Is he under contract for another year? Do you know?
One more season.
Okay. In that case, if he's not a rental and you can get another year with him, I guess that could be, and especially if they plan on letting Nola walk, that's something that you got to kind of, then they have to talk about that internally, what their game plan is, because you got to kind of look at that for the offseason. Because if Nola walks, we have to realize, while he's not been, ace level pitcher, there's not much else out there for next season.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
You have an extra year of Stroman, that kind of gives you another year to figure out, okay, what's going on with Painter if we don't get Ohtani,
right,
and all that stuff. So it gives you some time, I guess. Another arm I wouldn't mind getting would be Jack Flaherty. I know you said NL Central.
Ooh, okay.
He's definitely really volatile. Can look really good, really bad. But I think you could get him way cheaper than Stroman. But he's got some nasty stuff if he's on.
If he's on, man, he looks good. But it's just the stuff with the Cardinals. The Cardinals GM came out with the news that he's going to basically have like everybody's on the table. I really have a hard time believing that they're going to punt on Arenado with 4 years left.
That's a lot. And it's a pretty team-friendly contract, too.
On Goldschmidt. I'm looking at this going, the reason why I thought about, the two guys on the Cubs is that you get the opportunity to maybe package them together, and maybe it doesn't cost you as much.
Right.
Where if you're trying to get a hitter and a pitcher from two different teams, you're with the two different transactions, if you can package them in the same transaction,
right?
I feel like that could be something that could be it could be another a thing that could work out for them. What about a guy like they're going to play Cleveland in a couple weeks? Josh Bell is a guy we saw a little bit last year with the Padres, and then another guy I was looking at was like CJ Cron and Kutch.
Yeah. So as much as I love Kutch, I think most people would want him back just because his personality is awesome. He's a great dude, great clubhouse guy. Fans absolutely love him. And I'm one of them, right? Like, I absolutely love him. I don't know if he is an impact maker that I'm willing to make a trade for. CJ Cron, on the other hand, we need a right-handed bat, right? Again, if there's no plan of bringing Hoskins back and you get Cron, then there is no plan of bringing Hoskins back, right? But he's definitely probably out of all the first basemen other than Goldschmidt, whose names have been kind of floated around to be available, I think he's probably my top choice. You can get him way cheaper, obviously, than Goldschmidt. And then I'm sorry, who was the other guy? He said Cron, Kutch, and
Josh Bell.
Josh Bell. He's
Josh Bell, who's playing in Cleveland, who's a switch hitter. And who's got power, and we saw a little bit of that power last year in that Padres series.
We did.
I was thinking that could be, that to be able to maybe put that guy in Citizens Bank Park, could be launching, some missiles.
Yeah. So I'm looking at his stats right now because he's another one that I see every day in the free agency of my fantasy baseball. So 298 at bats, only 9 home runs. So we're not really seeing that pop so much.
Okay.
232 hitter, 700 OPS. So to me, I don't know if that's enough to like, I feel like Hall could basically do that. But again, you get the switch hitter part of it. So I guess that could help a little bit. But I'd rather get a guy who's going to be more consistently impactful, I guess. And I think Cron would be more fitting that build.
Okay. Any other names that you were thinking of?
I threw Flaherty out there. I don't really like last year. I felt like we had to make some bigger moves. This year,
Okay.
I feel like because we have so many guys internally who once they actually like start playing a little bit better,
Mhm.
like should already correct this, right? Like Schwarber hasn't really been his best self yet. I mean, he had a decent June. He's had a decent start to July, but he's still striking out too much. We haven't really seen a ton of those like, oh, Schwarber homered again today. Like Schwarber hit 2 today. Like he's hitting home runs. Like he's at 25 now. So he's definitely doing it. But I still don't think he's hit his full stride yet. Turner, we know, has not. He's getting more clutch hits. Still bailing out on some of those outside pitches, though. So that's kind of frustrating. I'm wondering if he's kind of going through what Castellanos went through last year. And just trying to get comfortable. He's got a lot more pressure on him because of the contract he signed too. So I think he'll eventually get better. Harper's power should start coming back. There's a lot of little things that are kind of already like being planned on with the club that I think are going to just be able to kind of make impact. So I would love to make a huge splash, right? Get someone like Ohtani or get a couple little guys, but I don't think we need to do, a ton at the deadline. I'm okay with, maybe another bullpen arm just for depth, another starter just for depth. And like I said, like a right-handed power bat in some capacity, Bellinger being my top choice.
Last name I'm going to throw at you, Lucas Giolito.
Oh, I forgot about Giolito.
From playing,
He's another one.
Playing in Chicago, right? Chicago's sitting fourth in the Central. They're 8.5.
Oh, they're
back.
A mess. They're a dumpster. They're a mess.
And they're a mess right now. So it's like, could that be a guy that maybe they want to move on?
I have seen his name thrown out there actually.
Okay.
And I think he would be. I've liked his stuff. He's had some weird years though. Like he had a really, really good year, I think 2 years ago. Last year kind of came back down to earth. I think this year he's kind of been in the middle. I forget his exact numbers, but I've been kind of following him because his name's been kind of coming out there every now and then. And again, I think a lot of this just has to do with the right asking price. I just think starting pitching is at such a premium right now where teams who are selling starting pitchers really have, all of the say in what's being asked for here. And if someone's going to give it up because you have so many teams who need starting pitching. So I just get nervous that, we're going to be giving up too much for someone who isn't going to make as much of a difference. Whereas, like I said, like Ohtani, you give up whoever you got to do to give it. But,
right.
I would be more hesitant on some of these other guys.
All right. We got to talk about the craze that is sweeping everybody's time wasting app here. The Immaculate Grid. What my brother, we were talking about it on 4th of July. He and his buddies kind of go back and forth with it. Talk to me about where like this just feeds into like all of my useless sports knowledge. And now that I've kind of discovered them for each sport, I'm like, I have to only play them like in season because otherwise I could spend just an inordinate amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really cool concept. I've been doing it, and I got to be honest, like for how much I follow baseball, I'm disappointed in some of my results so far. It's like little things where I'm like, because I'm trying, like I know a lot of guys. I know a lot of people are like, what do you care more about? Like getting the full 9? Do you care about the rarity score? And I'm kind of like mixed. I'm like, I wouldn't mind getting a couple like rare guys out there, but at the same time, I'm like, I want to get all 9.
Yeah,
so
I'm
some
kind of
days
in
are
the
easier
same
than
place.
others. So today, I think I'm I think I have 3 more to go. I usually can't sit there and do all of them at the same time, or else I'll sit there and just I'll waste a lot of time. So I usually do a few, take a little break, go have a cup of coffee or whatever, go back, look at it again, and kind of check it out. But
so who do you have so far? So right now, like on the left-hand side, if you're not familiar with the Immaculate Grid, you've got 9 guesses, you've got 9 boxes, and it's essentially like a Sudoku for sports. Like you've got to match up 2 teams or 2 categories of things in Major League Baseball. So right now, along the left-hand side, you've got the Astros, Dodgers, and then Gold Gloves. And then across the top, you've got the Rangers, the Washington Nationals, and then 200-plus strikeout seasons. So where did you start with yours today?
So there's always, I guess, like the Dodgers. I just feel like since they're so marketed, I always feel like if there's a team like that, I can usually think of more guys, right? So I do have I have the whole Dodgers row filled out. The only things I don't have at this point, I don't have Texas, Houston, or Houston and Washington / Montreal, and I don't have 200 strikeout season Gold Glove. And I'm thinking I may have used a guy that I should have used a different one for that one, because now I'm second guessing myself on something. So are we going over? Are we going over actual guys here? I don't know.
Yeah, you want to give me the guys you got?
All right.
Right now we got one person watching, so we got.
Okay.
I feel like we'll be okay.
There you go.
Who do you got in the Dodgers row?
All right, so Dodgers row for Dodgers and Rangers, I have Corey Seager.
Okay.
And he was 41% at the time I got it in. Okay. So more people have been taking him, I guess. This one, I was actually surprised at the low number here. But Max Scherzer for Dodgers Nationals.
Okay. All right.
And then this is the one where I'm not, and again, like awards like Gold Glove always throw me off, because I'm like, I especially pitchers with Gold Gloves, because I mean, I don't really follow defensive pitchers all that much. So I used Kershaw for the Dodgers 200K season one, but I almost don't. Then I started second guessing myself and think he may have won a Gold Glove, so I probably should have used him for that, because I don't have that one yet.
All right. Here we go. Okay, hold on. Why am I drawing a blank here? Oh God, because I'm hitting C instead of K. All right. So the 200 strikeout Astros. First, Nolan Ryan.
Oh, so actually, I figured he might be the top one, so I went a little lower and did Verlander.
Okay.
But I mean, Nolan Ryan, I would have to think would probably be a higher over. He's probably the top one
with the rarity score.
Yeah. So I went a little lower. I figured Verlander would be up there too, but I wanted to get it.
Okay.
And then I have the Gold Glovers from Texas and Washington. Texas won a little bit of he had a brief stint as a Philly. Michael Young.
Okay. Ooh, okay. I haven't thought about him in a while. Gosh.
Yeah, I know. I'm just going through old Rangers, because now, I don't know if there's any who would have won a Gold Glove yet that I could think of.
Okay.
And then this guy, I'm guessing he's going to be the top one. What's his name? Ryan Zimmerman.
Oh, okay. All right. So right now we've got Astros Rangers. And I'm trying to think. And then we've got the Nationals and Astros.
So, and I'm trying to think through like current rosters is tough, because especially with like the Nationals, because they're all like homegrown, like minor league guys who haven't been on other teams really. So I almost have to think like, okay, let me think back to Astros who may have started careers in Washington. Montreal's probably not there anymore, but even trying to think back to older guys who even going back to Montreal days.
And that's the other thing I think people don't recognize, is that like the Nationals, you can also use Expos.
Yeah, you can use basically anyone in that franchise. I think even with there was another one I did the other day. I can't remember what it was.
What about Pudge?
Oh,
did Pudge play? Did he play in Houston?
He played. I think he was Miami, or he was Florida, Texas. I don't remember if he
like ended his career.
I don't remember him being. Maybe he did at the end of his career, and that's where like I always get tripped up at like the guys finish their career a year there.
You care if I try it?
Try it. Go for it.
Let's see here.
It gives me one to narrow down on my on my list.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
There we go. Okay, good.
There we go. All right, so we're missing Astros, Rangers, and then the Gold Glove 200 strikeout.
Yeah. So here's where I'm thinking with the 200. So, and this is, I know Greg Maddux won like a bajillion Gold Gloves, but he was never a big strikeout pitcher. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if I don't know if he ever reached 200 in a season. But then again, they pitched more innings at that time, so he may have gotten there just from sheer amount of innings he would have pitched.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Okay. The guy that I'm thinking of for the Astros Rangers is a guy that's close and near and dear to our heart. He was a trade deadline acquisition, an outfield trade deadline.
We got him from Houston.
From Houston.
Wasn't
It was the year they lost to the Yankees. He wore a single digit for the Phillies.
Why am I blanking on this? Outfield acquisition from Houston.
It would be that Hunter Pence.
Oh, well, did Hunter Pence? Yes, we did get it. Yes. Okay. Good. Yep. That was dumb of me. For some reason, I was at a game where he just got traded to the Phillies, and we were in San Francisco. So for some reason, I was putting him in San Francisco, but that was just me being dumb. Hunter Pence. Oh, that's a good one. There we go.
All right. So what are your thoughts on the Gold Glove 200 strikeout?
That's the one where I was saying the Maddux thing, but I don't know if you're at 200 strikeouts. I'm trying to think back to like
Greg Maddux.
Well, I don't. But again,
that's who I was thinking of, because I remember
you were thinking it too.
He was one of a bunch of guys that and the reason I'm thinking of, I was watching it during the rain delay, right? They showed the 93 Phillies video, and just the way that he was defensively,
Oh, I know he had like an insane streak of like Gold Gloves that he won. But again, I know he even says, like, when I know people have talked to him about it, and he even says, like, I pitched to contact. I would throw less pitches. I didn't have to strike guys out. So I don't know if he would hit 200 in a season ever. But I mean, he may have, like I said, just because they threw more innings at that time.
Let's go.
Let's try it.
Let's just risk it and get the biscuit here.
Yep.
Make sure we select Greg Maddux and not Mike Maddux.
Not Mike Maddux.
Oh, all right.
All right. Let's
Here we go. So we had our rarity score not too high, right? Not great. It was 315, which is, it's not horrible.
What was Maddux?
This is always the part that amazes me.
Yes.
Is to look at how like you're like searching, and we can't think of one. Right. But to look at
how many there are,
the fact that there have been 135 guys that have played for both the Rangers and the Dodgers, just wild stuff, man. Just pretty cool.
It is.
But then the most popular, right? So across the top, Nolan Ryan, Will Harris, Justin Verlander, Corey Seager, Trey Turner, Kershaw, and then Beltre, Ryan Zimmerman, and then Greg Maddux.
Oh, and Nolan Ryan being for Texas and Houston. I can't believe we didn't think of that one right away, too. That was
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I always do this. I'm like, how did I not think of this?
But very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Something fun to, just kill some time. But Eric, anything you want to hit us with on the way out? You want to, let people know where they can find your articles, because I know you got them in a couple different spots.
Yeah, I got a couple different ones. So Fired Up, Fired Up Sports. I'm on there. I'm also on That Ball's Out of Here, which is part of the Fan-Sided Network. So I've been mixing time doing a little bit of writing for each one there. So it's been fun. But that's where you can find me. And then I usually post all my articles on my Twitter. So my Twitter handle's there, so you can always find them from there.
Listen, today was fun, man.
Covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we had a really good conversation. But you know where to find all of our stuff. You go find it on social media. Go check out the sponsors. Go check out all the stuff in the what do the kids say? The links are in the bio.
Yeah.
But we'll be back at some point. And Eric, have a great week. And Philly, we'll talk to you later.
All right. See you, Don.
All right.
This is the Broad Street Line, where Philly sports fans leave all of their sports hot takes. Call 267-405-3062 and show us your passion for Philly sports. Don't forget to tune in every Wednesday at 8:30 when we listen to your live reactions to the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat.
The swing of the miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2